Dr. Eileen Kennedy-Moore. I am so grateful for you. This is obviously a topic that's very personal for me, so I do feel a little bit selfish being able to talk to you one-on-one, but I know a lot of listeners and viewers feel the same way, which is why they're here. So we're approaching the holidays. Regardless of what you celebrate this time of year, their kids are off school and there is a lot more time where parents just are not able to pay attention to them. We're not seeing as many kids in sports, right? It's wintertime, it's the off season, unless you play basketball. So I wanted to ask you, as we head into the holidays, what are you thinking and feeling for all those kids out there?
Well, they're excited. Like, the holidays are exciting for kids, and they do like having the traditions, the things that our family always does, the foods and the people and the events. That feels wonderful. But here's what I'm going to predict. There are going to be a lot of arguments about devices.
The devices are, I mean, I feel like it's all we talk about as moms is there's a constant, almost a comparison game. Maybe it's just me being insecure, but you sort of ask any mom who's in middle school, does your daughter have a cell phone? Do they have an Apple Watch? Do they have a Gizmo, a Gab, or whatever it is? The devices are divisive, right?
Yes, and the fact is your kid is gonna tell you everybody has a smartphone, and they're not wrong. So, I just read a recent study that said that over 70% of 11-year-olds have smartphones, and a lot of them are saying they got it when they were around 8. Now, in my practice, I'm a clinical psychologist. I have never heard a parent come in and say, I'm so glad that I gave my kid a smartphone, and I wish they spent more time on it. That has never happened. Never, never, never.
My daughter asked for a cell phone. As I mentioned, she's 11. She asked for a cell phone because a lot of her friends are getting them ahead of middle
Yeah.
school. And I it was involuntary. I just laughed at her. And I really did. Do you know what I
Well,
do
she
for a
knows where
living?
she stands.
Do you know what I do for a living? Do you know what I do all day, every day? I mean, I don't know how to play half these board games, but I'll play them with you. I don't know anything to get. So the fact of the matter is it's replacing, and we've had this conversation almost ad nauseum, it's replacing real relationships. Are we starting to see that trend reverse? I saw you hesitate there.
So, if we look at the research from like Common Sense Media, which is a trusted source, right? They say that for the majority of kids, their online life supplements and supports their in person relationships. But see, those comments, all of the research is about kids in general, kids on average. You know what we parents don't have to deal with? Kids in general, kids on average. We have to deal with our particular child. So, this is something where I really tell parents to trust your own expertise. No one has logged more hours or more years with your kid than you have. You know your child's tendencies. And sometimes people will argue, well, it's the future, they're going to have to deal with it at some point. Use your deep knowledge of your child about when you think they're ready for that kind of constant
Immersion.
flooding of information. And think about not just what is it going to do to them, because it may not do anything, but what is it going to take them away from? In my practice, I often hear kids talking about friendship issues, and I'll say to them, well, why don't you talk to somebody at lunchtime? What could you talk about? And they go, they're on their phones. So I do see some schools really pushing back about not having phones during the school day. I read one study where they say on average, again, it's averages, may or may not apply to your kid, but on average, kids are spending an hour and a half of their 6.5 hour day school day on devices. So what are they not doing then? They're not talking to their neighbors. They're not really paying attention to what the teacher is telling them. They're not reading or engaging with the material that we hope they're they're learning.
We've sat down with Governor Hochul and Governor Huckabee Sanders about both states have different cell phone bans. There's, if I'm not mistaken, more than 35 now. We've been covering that story. And there really has been no negative effects. Of course, we're only halfway through the school year, but for the most part, the halls are loud again. The lunchroom is loud again, which is how we were raised. I want to go back to something that you said when you said, your kids, you want them to be almost mature when it comes to being able to navigate this online world. So expose them because everyone else is doing it. The reason I have trouble buying that is certainly I don't navigate gracefully, but it doesn't take me long, at least, to navigate a cell phone. I'm still at the party.
Yes.
They're still going to be they're not going to be 24 years old with a paper map in their car.
Right, exactly. And also, whatever technology we have now, by the time our kids are adults, it's going to be entirely different. Like think about 10 years ago, like we didn't have the capabilities that we have now. So it's not like a thing that they must learn now. There are foundational skills. We have to learn how to have conversations. We have to learn how to navigate differences. We have to learn math and reading. But using a particular device, that's not a foundational skill.
I'm going to make a really judgy comment. And I know moms always say, I don't judge other moms. Okay, we all judge each other. Like, okay, yeah, well, I wish I could get off that throne that everyone else is on. And I say to my daughter, again, this is very judgy. The kids who have cell phones early are peaking early, and their parents are overcompensating because maybe they don't feel like they're cool and they want their kids to be cool. I want to say that blanket judgmental statement to you. And I want to hear your reaction to that.
Well, I think that we never know what's going on in another family.
You're telling me not to judge.
I'm just saying, let's look at each other with kindness.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that is really important. So not related to social media, but just in how we treat each other. I had a client once, a mom, and her kid did something rotten. I forget what it was, but it was bad enough that my client felt like she needed to call the other mom and apologize and check in on the other girl. And she was very nervous about this because she was sure that the other mom was going to say, how could you raise such a demon child, or something to that effect? And you're a terrible mother, or something like that. But she made the phone call anyway. And she apologized and she asked how the other kid was doing. The other kid was fine. And then the other mom said something wonderful. She said, this parenting thing is hard.
Mhm.
Isn't that beautiful? Because the shame from my client just kind of dropped away. And there was a sigh of relief. And it's like, yeah, we're all struggling and it's hard. And sometimes kids are in a divorce situation that's complicated and they need a phone. And sometimes everybody else in the friend group does have a cell phone and they're making plans without our kid. So maybe that parent is making a different rule and they're struggling with it. I promise you. But they're trying to figure it out. We're all trying to figure this out. So, okay, I'm no saint on this because when my kids were younger and they would complain that, well, Jeremy's mother lets him do whatever Jeremy's mother let him do. And I would look at him and say, well, obviously Jeremy's mother doesn't love him as much as I love you.
Well, and you're right. So when you were saying treat with kindness, I think to myself, and I'm not trying to ostracize one of my kids, but one of my kids, my husband and I are like, I hope he's kind. I hope he doesn't hit anybody on the schoolyard. I hope he doesn't throw the ball and hit a teacher in the face. So I say it with a little bit of a caveat. Like, I also don't put my kids on the pedestal. And he's also the one that we're like, we hope he's kind. We hope that because he's bigger and he's stronger and he's more advanced. So I do say that with a little bit of an asterisk. Do not think my kids are perfect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, our kids are definitely going to keep us humble. No question.
I'm going to be the one who's calling and apologizing for him, but I'm sitting here making fun of other. Anyways, I want to go back to the loneliness, the companion AI. I mean, the headlines are crazy lately about kids forming relationships with people who don't exist.
Okay, Elizabeth, this scares the heck out of me. I just wrote a very long article about AI friendships. Will AI companions destroy your child's friendships, or something like that? I don't remember the exact title, but if you look up AI companions in my name, you can find it. But it, and the research on this is so bad. And the Common Sense Media, American Psychological Association have both come out saying bad, bad, bad. Like everybody who cares about kids, all the institutions are just saying bad, bad, bad. And there are a bunch of reasons for this. The first is the content. So the stuff gets bad, like sexual and wrong information, very, very fast. And people say, well, it doesn't matter. It's not for kids. There are no guardrails on this. All the kid has to say, are you 18? Yeah, I'm 18. And
Me
they're in.
too. Me too. I'm 18
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So, and then, so there's the wrong information, the disturbing information that these things will readily share, even with adults. And then the other thing is the rights grab. So there are no protections for children. The AI companies are saying, okay, we own everything that you post and we can do whatever we want with it in perpetuity. That's not right for children. Are you kidding me? But I think the biggest danger for these, and I've heard third graders say, oh, it helps my social skills and it builds my confidence. No, it does not. It is just so awful. That sycophantic, oh, you're so smart, you're so amazing. That is terrible. That promotes narcissism. In real relationships, there's not that, oh, you're so amazing constantly. There's friction. And that is important. Most of us wander through life thinking, well, pretty much everybody thinks and feels the same way I do. And it's the conflicts that stop us short and help us realize, oh, they see things entirely differently. And in a real relationship, we have the opportunity to explain and to understand and to compromise or accept. And that's what helps us grow. If we think about the trajectory of children's development in friendship from the love the one you're with friendships of the toddler years to the more intimate and lasting friendships of the teen years, what fuels that development is an increasing ability to understand someone else's perspective. That's exactly what AI can't do because it's an echo chamber. And as an adult with a well-established identity, I find it irritating when AI is flattering me. It's like, stop doing that. So like I've experimented a little bit with AI, but I can write better than AI. And I don't know, I usually end up annoyed with it.
And you would think that we would learn about the echo chamber. You would think that we would look at the definition of insanity and say, in recent history, we have seen the dangers of the echo chamber. We have the statistical data that if you do enter one of these echo chambers
You
online,
will be radicalized. I mean, this is old research. This is 1960s research from the Bay of Pigs. President Kennedy was sitting around with his people and like, how the heck did that happen? How could we be so wrong? And the answer that psychologists came up with is what's called a risky shift. If you have a group of people and they all agree with each other, what happens is that everybody ends up in a position that nobody individually would have started out with, but they all shifted in a more radical direction because of just the agreement. And President Kennedy, after that, actually assigned someone in his cabinet to take the contrarian position and argue about it, because to just break that risky shift thing, we have to be listening to people who are different than us and not just dismissing them about they're bad. We have to be really trying to understand, even if we don't agree, why do they think that? Why do they feel that? And that's not just for kids, that's for adults.
it's happening. What is so beyond me though is that it's happening to policymakers and parents alike, and we're watching the reflection in children, right? Am I right about that? We're seeing it's almost like it's a perfect circle.
Yeah. Well, I think it is certainly harder for kids to learn how to be decent people if we adults can't manage it. And it's true that, we adults haven't managed world peace or even perfect marriages. So of course, kids are going to struggle in their relationships. But I think that struggle is healthy. The lack of struggle is what I worry about.
Well,
Um,
and then if they I hear these stories about, I don't, as I mentioned, my 11-year-old doesn't have access to something like Roblox.
Uh-huh.
So it's a foreign language to me when I hear other moms talk about it, but I also hear that they use it as leverage. Well, if you do your homework, you can have 10 minutes of Roblox, but then
Uh-huh.
it's a fight to get them off Roblox and they can meet people on Roblox.
Yeah.
All of this seems like it would be easier if it wasn't introduced at all.
I mean, it's certainly easier to have a clean no. At some point, you're probably going to introduce phones and maybe social media. Like, kids don't text as much now, they tend to use Snapchat to message each other. Um, that's hard. That's hard. We do have to educate them, and conversations are gonna work better than, just rules, because we want to get the words out of their lips. What do you think a sign would be of somebody spending too much time on their phone? Um, why do you think it's not a good idea to put private information online? How could that be misused? Why do you think it's wrong to pretend to be somebody else when you're online? And if we can drag it out of them, questions are going to work better than lectures. Like, we all want to just set them straight, but if we can ask good questions, we can help the kids to think it through. And that's better, because if they understand it from their own point of view, if they have arguments that make sense to them, they're in a better position to make good decisions when we're not around. They will have thought things through. And that's what we want kids to learn, is how to think things through.
Okay, let's say you have a parent who says, I get emotional. I get in an argument with my 12-year-old daughter on Roblox. I'm trying to play mental jujitsu in her head and ask her these questions, and she implodes.
Well, there's a time and a place. So right when you're trying to get them off the device is not the time to
So
have it.
that's helpful information. Don't
Yeah.
have that conversation when the
Right
device.
in the middle, yeah, when everybody's upset. Also, we wanna keep things in perspective. The Just because the kid wants to do more video games or whatever games than the parents do, and they complain when they are asked to get off, doesn't mean that they are addicted to whatever the game is. Like, kids wanna do a lot of things more than we want them to do. So, like, they wanna stay at the park more than we we want them to. So the transitions are hard for everyone. Ross Greene has this beautiful method called collaborative problem solving, which I think is, you can almost see their little brains growing in front of your eyes. So you pick a calm moment, a neutral moment, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, away from everything. And the first thing you do is you mention what you've noticed. So, I've noticed you and I tend to get in a big argument when I say it's time to get off of roadblocks. And then you say, what's going on? Because we can't solve the problem unless we understand the kid's perspective on it. So then, once you've heard, and then you ask, is there anything else? And then you describe the problem in terms of two concerns. So on the one hand, you really love playing Roblox, and you can play it with your friends and you talk about it the next day. So it's an important way for you to connect with your friends. At the same time, and then you raise the other connection with, I don't want it interfering with sleep, and I don't want it interfering with family time. And then you ask the kid, how can we solve this? Now, my experience is that the kid's first suggestion is usually completely unreasonable. So they might say, well, I should be able to do it 24/7. It's fun. It makes my brain grow. um, so your job as a parent here is, don't pick up the gauntlet. So your answer should be, well, that's one option, but it doesn't take care of concern number two, which is, what you, the parent, and everybody else has about, like, there are other things in life. And then you toss it back to the kid. What else could we do? And if they come up with a partial solution, then you say, that's interesting. And then you ask more questions. What about this situation? What if that happens? And get the kid to think it through. This is so beautiful. This is wonderful. they're really problem solving there. If they come up with what you think might be a workable solution, you say, okay, let's try it. Let's see how it works. Now, not every episode of collaborative problem solving is going to lead to a glorious resolution. So sometimes you might say, well, let's both think about it and we can talk about it again later. But kids are so powerful with their solutions. A friend of mine asked her kids, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time to spend on devices? And the kids came back with a number that was lower than what she would have said. And she's like, oh, okay. So you never know. You never know.
I hear a lot of empowering with the kids, but also, and I, of course, it's controversial to talk about gentle parenting, but I also would assume that you also want the parents to feel empowered.
Exactly. And so there's like 50 years of research on what's called authoritative parenting. And what comes out of this is that every kid needs two ingredients: warmth plus limits. You can't have one without the other, or the results are pretty bad. Because if we're just having the limits, the kids will try to get away with what they can because they haven't internalized our values. So the basis of our authority with our kids is our connection with them. At the same time, if we are so afraid of upsetting our kids that we never put a limit on them, so that's only the warmth and never the limits, that's permissive parenting. And that has the worst outcomes for the children. So we have to have limits. One limit that I universally recommend is no devices in the bedroom at nighttime. Nothing, I'm telling you this as a clinical psychologist who has sat with a lot of kids, nothing good happens on their devices in the middle of the night. And also it interferes with their sleep. I have a client who said that, or I have a colleague who said that we would all be out of work if kids got enough sleep. And I don't think that's quite true, but there's a strong element of truth to that. Yeah.
We totally underestimate routine and sleep, right?
Yeah. It really matters.
And boundaries.
Yeah. So there are a lot of good things about gentle parenting, like acknowledging children's feelings is really important. Helping them to think things through is great. At the same time, I think sometimes it is pushed too far and it looks more like permissive parenting. And so I had a client once. She was, how old was she? Like upper elementary. And the event was that it was going to be grandma's birthday. And family was gathering from all corners to come together for grandma's birthday. Now, this kid hated having her picture taken. And so she was in my office and I said to her, you really hate having your picture taken. She goes, yeah. And it's boring and it always takes a long time. She goes, yeah. And plus it makes you feel self-conscious with, people looking at you. She goes, yeah. And I said, I hear you. And then I said, and whose feelings are most important at grandma's birthday? She goes, oh, I go, exactly.
Wow, that's
So
really beautiful because I can see even in because I talk a big game. My husband always rolls his eyes when I say that I don't exhibit any gentle parenting behaviors, which is obviously a lie. Thank God that he is not gentle. But I think I would, and I was trying to visualize what I would do. I think I would pull my daughter out of that situation, which would be not only hurtful, but it would empower her to make bad narcissistic decisions, right?
Yeah. So the limits, one of the limits that I see with how gentle parenting is sometimes applied is there's so much emphasis on the child's feelings that it neglects everybody else's.
And that's not the real world.
Exactly. And remember, that's what we need for the development of healthy relationships. So, Elizabeth, I was telling you on the break, I do a podcast every week called Kids Ask Dr. Friend-tastic. And it's 5 minutes. It comes out every Saturday. And every episode features an audio recording of a question from a kid about friendship. And then I try to say something practical, thought-provoking, and hopefully research-based. But like I lose money on this thing, but I do it and I will continue to do that because I think it is so urgent. When we think about the epidemic of loneliness among adults, the mental health crisis among teens, and the painful divisiveness in our country and in our world, it has never been more important to teach children how to build strong and caring relationships.
That's exactly why we invited you on. I mean, if you're creating this podcast, which is on every Saturday and it's quick, and we're certainly going to incorporate that in our household
Oh,
before
good.
we head out
Yeah,
for
send in questions. I'm always, especially questions from boys. I'm always looking for for those.
better watch out. I got a couple of those.
Oh,
Uh, is that what you're seeing in all your years of practice? Is that this epidemic of loneliness and kids resorting to find companionship in artificial intelligence is simply getting worse, not better?
well, I think we have to be careful about saying the sky is falling.
Okay.
So, what Common Sense Media, their research is showing is that about a third of kids, teenagers, have interacted with AI companions, and about a third of them say those interactions are nice. They're really satisfying, and sometimes they'll talk to him about the companion about things that they feel uncomfortable talking to their parents or their friends about. But 80% of teens spend more time with their friends than with the AI companion. So drive it home, software doesn't love you.
Right.
It's an echo chamber, and the companies are using you. Like, I think it's useful with teens to try to get them riled about how those companies are manipulating your emotions and using everything that you say. Like, that's bad. No teenager likes to feel controlled. So, like, why are you giving the control to those companies who don't love you?
Well,
Um,
it's funny you should say that. I'm getting a text from one of my producers right now about an executive order for a federal rule on AI regulation. So, of course, I'm not asking you to tell me who you voted for in any election. I'm asking you is if you really do want to see policy when it comes to regulating AI.
Absolutely. This is too big for any one family to handle. Absolutely. These companies need to be regulated and reined in, and we have to be looking to the scientists. So, Common Sense Media, American Psychological Association, they have lists of things that they think that the companies ought to have to abide by. And we have to protect our children. This is not optional. This is not a red versus
Political.
blue issue. Like, we all love our children. That's something that we all have in common. So, no, these companies do not get to exploit our children.
What do you want to see? If you were to see more and more regulation, and again, I'm not not asking for your voter identification card here, because I don't think, as you mentioned, that this should have anything to do with who's in the White House. I
Yeah,
just think
yeah.
the White
No,
House
this
should
is not a
be doing
red blue issue. Not at
it. No.
all. Yeah. So I would go to the Common Sense Media report and say all of these ones, because that's what the scientists and the policymakers have figured out. Like, I'm just an individual psychologist. I don't know about government policy, but there are people who are nonpartisan and who do the research and who understand policy and know what is needed. I mean, at a minimum, it's got to be let's attack the rights grab that they're taking, to be able to use what our child says. Um, Also, there have been horrific stories of teenagers who have died because the stupid AI is telling them how to do it and telling them that, oh, why don't you join me? No, you are not a thing. You are just software. So I'm not saying that any kid who goes on and talks to an AI companion is going to end up with suicide, but how many are we going to allow?
Mhm.
And what safeguards are we going to put in to make sure that that doesn't happen? These AI things are practicing without a license. I have 6 years of graduate education, um, plus an internship, plus nonstop continuing education that I have to keep doing. I get supervision from peers, two groups of of peers. And I'm reading constantly. You think the AI is doing all that? And I am bound by ethical principles of not harming my clients and not exploiting them.
Pretty sure AI is not.
Right. Yeah. So, th- yeah. So I think they should be very careful about, AI therapists, and I'm putting that in quote marks because what do they know? And honestly, in my practice, the reason that I have a full practice and could double it if, I had the bandwidth to see even more people is because I care. That like when I'm in a room with somebody, I genuinely care. I am on their side 1,000%.
Yeah, I can hear it. Well, and
AI is not, yeah.
you're in the trenches, and so I think the biggest takeaway, and my last question, and I'm sure I'll ask you three more, is you mentioned the human aspect of it, how much you care, your experience, but you really did get animated when I asked you about more AI regulations and what can be done via policy because you're seeing it in real time. So
Yeah.
again, we're not asking you to violate any HIPAA, but tell us what you're seeing with some of these kids and the dangers of all of these artificial intelligent relationships that they're forming.
So I have started asking clients, do you have an AI companion? And so far in my one little practice, I haven't found anybody who is using it regularly. Thank goodness. I've had cases of adults who are using it. Um, because I started, when I wrote that article, I started asking people about it in my social circle as well, and not among my personal clients, but among people that I know generally. Um, there's one guy who, when he drives, he um, talks to AI about his business. And there's one woman who's very anxious, and her husband gets a little annoyed about that. So she talks to the AI companion about her worries.
Okay.
Um, I'd rather she talk to a therapist, but I don't know her well enough to say anything about that.
Yeah, but if adults are doing it and we can read online, you may not have firsthand, but kids are doing it too. I mean, that
Well, a lot of times the AI is there and the kids don't even realize it.
right.
So you do a Google search, what's for the first, 4 inches are AI answers.
Yeah.
And AI lies. So I had a situation where I was gonna write an article, and I knew what research that I wanted to cover. So I threw it in and said, "Include this research, give me later research, and give me the full academic citation." And this article came up that's like, "Oh, that's so interesting. It was the perfect article. I wanted to read it." I wasted an hour looking for that article because it doesn't exist and the author doesn't even work in that area. So,
Unbelievable.
adults can be pulled in.
Okay, so before I let you go, what with all of your years experience and what worries you the most? What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? So I'm not really a
Doomsday
keep me
person.
up at night kind of person. I'm more like a roll up my sleeves, what can we do?
Okay.
And I would say what we can do is focus on friendship. Research tells us, and this is correlational, so, doesn't imply causation, but when kids have even one friend who they like, who likes them back, a reciprocal friend, they feel happier. They cope better with stress. They are less likely to be bullied. They feel more confident. Um, they're more engaged with school. So friendship is kind of the answer to everything for kids and for all of us. I mean, when I think about the hardest times in my life, it's my family and my friends who have gotten me through it. That it is just so fundamental and so important, and it's something that we learn. So from the time that kids are in preschool and they either caring about a friend or wanting to continue playing with a friend prevents them from grabbing all the toys and keeping them all to themselves. It pulls us out of ourselves, that caring about someone else. And I think that is so important. I've written a bunch of books, Growing Friendships, A Kid's Guide to Making and Keeping Friends, and Growing Feelings, A Kid's Guide to Dealing with Emotions about Friends and Other Kids. Those are my books for 6 to 12-year-olds. But I also have a book for parents called Kid Confidence. And it's about how to help your child make friends, build resilience, and develop real self-esteem. And the point of that book is that real self-esteem is not about standing in front of a mirror and saying, gosh, I love myself. Because who does that? And would you want to be friends with them if they did? That is not our goal. Real self-esteem is more like the way we are with a close friend. So we're not sitting there thinking, does he like me? Or is she impressed by me? We're just immersed in the conversation or the activity. And there's this beautiful kind of forgetting of the self that's called a quiet ego. Isn't that beautiful? That's what we're aiming for. So how do we get that for our kids? Well, it's 3 ingredients. The first is connection, those relationships where we feel known and valued. The second is competence, where we gain skills and embrace the learning process. And the third is choice, where we make choices that tap into our deepest values or our connection to groups that matter to us. So all of this is about helping our child connect with something bigger than themselves. That's the answer. It's not about looking great. It's about what can you give? And that feels good.
Well, and you have so many resources online. It was wonderful to speak with you. And I will say, parenting is hard, and it's hard to parent in a time that we are in right now. But I really do feel optimistic because I have conversations such as this one, and I can share it with my friends. And I think it getting dispersed among a larger community really just gives me hope. Right? It's not all so bad.
No, we're going to figure it out. And that's part of being in relationships, right?
Right, right.
It's not going to be frictionless. They're going to annoy you because that's called living with people.
Except I can't annoy. I mean, I tell my husband I can't imagine how he could be annoyed with me.
Well, you're special.
Exactly. That's what I tell him. It's weird. I have to remind him every single day. I don't understand why. Dr. Kennedy-Moore, so grateful for you. We will have all of the resources, including the podcast, listed in the YouTube description tab underneath this. So grateful for you. People can find you online, and I'm certain that we'll have you back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.